PMFers, who's got that product market fit? All right, I'm here with Joe Delong, Joseph Delong. This is my first of a series called PMFers. We're looking at people who actually get product market fit, people who actually get users on chain. Joe, how you doing, man? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And I don't know if I like that's interesting about, that you're the people who can get users on chain. I'm not entirely sure I'm always there. It's quite difficult much of the time.
Great. Some existential dread too. Let's get into it. So how did you start building? Like even okay, so my how did you get into crypto is going to be rolled into like 3 questions at once, and it's how did you like learn how to learn and learn how to build? And then what were things that you built that got used? And then what were things that you built on chain that got used? And you can play that out however you want.
Yeah. Okay. So I started really, I started by reading a bunch of white papers because I went into protocols before I did DeFi. And so I read, I was about to leave my job at USAA, and so I knew that I had like 30 days left. And so I went and I read every single blockchain Byzantine fault tolerance paper that I could get my hands on. And there actually weren't that many then. There's probably a lot now, but it was like, Leslie Lamport, Castor Liskov, Bitcoin white paper, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then from there, I started working in protocols, and protocols is like kind of, there's nothing to do unless you're in research, which it was. So it's kind of
Was that a consensus?
Yeah.
You started? Okay.
Yeah, it was a consensus, and we were working on ETH2, which is now just called Ethereum. But we were working on that, and then they're like, okay, researchers say implement it this way, go and implement it this way, and that's what I would do. But there was a weird time. This is towards the end of 2020. Is as a protocol researcher, there was really protocol engineer. There was no room for growth because the 2 paths were fork Ethereum, and then you're the sworn enemy of Ethereum, and a scammer, of course.
Of course,
that's always the one that they love to call you. And then the other path was build your own protocol from scratch, and then you're Polkadot, and you're also a scammer. So there wasn't really much in the way of growth. And so I was working with some friends on DeFi protocols as kind of like a LARP for a little while. And I really enjoyed it. And I started building a little bit, and Sushi asked me to work there, and then I did.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you guys got a lot of on-chain users at that moment.
Totally. Yes. At that time, it was, I can't even remember. It was billions in volume and billions in TVL. That was, I think we're talking about stacks, right? About this sort of stuff.
That's my next question. It's like, what is your tech stack? How did you build this?
Which one? Sushi?
Well,
because I was
any protocol.
Okay, great. Then I got the perfect stack. Okay. The stack is Next, Vercel, obviously TypeScript in there. For indexing, use Ponder. Like, there is no better indexer out there. Foundry, of course, for contracts. And yeah, I just kind of like TypeScript front end to back end. The thing that I like about Next is that server actions are great. So I don't have to write an API and then the binding and then the code to like call and fetch, and I really like that aspect of Next.
I feel like your stack is very front-endy. Like when I look at your
totally.
stack,
Yeah.
Like I'm almost assuming that most protocols are going to spend 6 months to a year in Foundry, and then an extra month on that front end to get it out. Is that like the things that you listed were mostly front end stuff?
Yeah.
Isn't it don't you spend most of your time in Foundry? No.
No, okay. Totally not. Oh, well, like the whole bulk of the initial development is like in Foundry, and then I'll build it up, and then it won't freeze per se. We'll start like trying to do like audits, etc. But it'll be stable, and then we can start building the front end, and then like that, the contracts are, they're like, once they're done, you don't even really want to touch them all that much.
You'll find when you write your front end, though, you end up coming back to your contracts and putting in some read functions, putting in some events, like some shit you forgot. Is that the case with you too? For me,
totally.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, this one that I built, I was at Astaria. We built Astaria V0 and V1, but then towards the end we got experimental, and I was building Untitled, which was a very interesting design philosophy. And so everything was in the smart contract. It was all 100. I ensured that there was essentially no necessity for indexing, at least for the MVP. I even had a pagination function to
in Solidity.
To work as an API, basically a proto API, but we didn't have to host anything. I call that design philosophy AK-47 design. I think actually Amin coined that term. It's like, it doesn't jam. It's cheap. It's good. It's like ubiquitous. And so I think that design philosophy is has merit. It was a lot of the original dApps were like that. Like they would be static front end hosted on IPFS. There would be no back end. I think the first real app that had like back end was maybe like Compound or Uniswap, where they use their indexing for like pools. I guess UniV2 definitely needed indexing because of the pool deployer. And then
Okay, so Foundry, you work on your contracts for a while, just writing some tests, like fuzzing and like lots and lots of tests.
Tests.
Make sure we say
going
that
bananas.
Okay.
You don't ever like. I made so many mistakes in contracts that I'm the biggest like unit test, fuzzing test, formal verification believer like in the world. I don't think there's. I think that you shouldn't even like bother shipping it if there's not just like an insane amount of test coverage.
Great. Yep. Awesome. I think that's a good point to make, and make sure that like new builders have that and have that as like the expectation.
Totally. So, if you go through, I have this little like Foundry lets you do. Shoot, what are they called? Hang on, let me just, if it's cool if I just look it up real fast.
For sure.
So they do forge coverage, but it generates like a report that's essentially unreadable. And then there's it's like some like weird format. And then there's a package that I use called Gen HTML. And then I like gen a website, and then I can go and I can check all the like the branch coverage. You want 100% branch coverage, 100% function coverage. What's the other one? Anyway, line coverage.
So hella tests. Like
anything that gets touched. Particularly you want to be focused on math. Like anytime there's plus, minus,
some
divide, multiple, multiply. It's always, you always want to have extra coverage on those, because that's where, especially like fuzzing is great, because a fuzzer will like in 2 seconds will tell you what the overflow and underflow is for it.
Awesome. So, okay. So my intuition is that we are at the point where education tooling is pretty good. If you are a decent programmer, you can land in the Ethereum space and you can start deploying things on L2 pretty quickly. It's really not the learning the syntax, learning the tools that is the hard part now. It seems like right now the hard part is building something that people will actually use. Thinking of the ideas, right? Yeah. You agree? Like, okay, totally. So what is your coming up with ideas process? How do you start to think about what will people use? Do you think of a person and kind of work backwards? Do you think of an idea and kind of fill in the solidity? Like, what does your ideation process look like?
Sure. I always come up with an idea first before so sometimes I write contracts to kind of like solidify the idea. Like I've been working on this one kind of like protocol design that I just started like yesterday. And you think you have an idea of how things are going to work, and then you get in there and it's like much different than you had anticipated. But I want to have the idea before I get started. And generally, I just, the thing about in DeFi in particular is the primitives, there aren't that many. People say, oh, this is a new DeFi primitive, or this is a new DeFi primitive, but there's really just like swaps and like options. And then that's like it. There's like lending, which is like a swap plus an option. And then there's like vaults or like yield aggregators, which are like are like uncollateralized lending. And so there aren't that many really great use cases. And so or not use cases. There aren't that many like new primitives. It's just kind of like the same stuff that gets like rehashed over and over again. I think the design philosophies on a lot of them are evolving, and I think that's interesting. I think particularly talk about hyperliquid versus AMMs and like why AMMs existed in the first place and why hyperliquid is doing so well. Yeah.
So my process in my mind right now is you have an idea, you decide bonding curves for IPFS things. And so you sit down and say, how do we track an IPFS thing? How do we create a bonding curve? You start dinking around in Foundry and you realize like, oh shit, I have to store a giant struct on chain.
Yeah. Dude, that's totally it.
Okay.
That's totally how it goes. Or it's like, I'm constantly, as I'm like ideating on something, like Eth Strategy is a great one. Okay. So as I was ideating on that, I was talking to my like co-founder, and I was like, okay, if we tweak this just this way, it's going to save 20,000 gas per transaction. Or if we do it this way, we can do it Oracle free. And so yeah, that's like when I start like messing around, I kind of like come up with some of these like ideas.
Almost like hacks to how a normal product would work, but how you can get a product to actually work on chain, which is like a totally different ball game.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, what about like validating the idea? So like once you have the idea and you start dinking around with it, do you pitch it to other people? Do you put it on chain to see if people use it? Like, how do you know if your idea has legs?
Yeah, putting it on chain to see if other people use it is pretty good, but I'd say it's not the best go to market. I think generally, this is actually one of the huge learnings for me from Astaria and Untitled, etc. Was I used to do like margin businesses when I was a kid, which is like, and one of the first things that you want to do with a margin business is you want to ensure that you have a customer. So you go out, instead of like buying a dry cleaner, you want to go out and like get people like pre-contracted for dry cleaning, or if you want to like, you want to ensure that there's a customer out there. And so that's what I did with Eth Strategy. And, I'm going to try again here in like a month or so, once I've kind of cleaned it up a little bit more. But with Eth Strategy, it was like we had this pre-commitment. It was just, a Google Doc and seeing if people were interested. And so we sent it out. And we got something like 40,000 like ETH committed in this Google Doc. And so I was like, all right, shoot, let's roll. Let's do this. And so just like kind of like worked like a demon to stand it up, and stayed up for like 2 days and got it all set up.
Was Eth Strategy a Ponzi?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it depends on the definition of Ponzi, because by that same definition, MicroStrategy is a Ponzi as well. But Ponzi's generally are repaying old investors with new investors' money. And in this design, in Eth Strategy and Eth XR, which is like going to be the next iteration, it's not. It's like everything is marked to NAV, the net asset value. And so when there's an imbalance out there for the Eth XR token, we would basically open an at-the-money auction to buy the imbalance. So basically, we're arbitraging the market with our own token. I really like the design there. I like that it's like everybody focus. Like I love the like egalitarian design of it. Really, is it's like everyone focuses on these like how can we like shove a governance token into this thing, or how can I make money off of this? Like, if it wasn't for like my original business partner, this is like there would be like zero fee or anything in this. And so when I'm relaunching, it's going to be 100% egalitarian, and the ETH XR token is going to be governing the assets that are underlying. And so it's like kind of like self-operating protocol, which I like.
I mean, like Uniswap V2 to me was like, oh, I get it now. Like it's just this vending machine people can put money in and make fees off of. And by putting the money in, they make trades work, and trades work more efficiently with more money in it. It was like this magic vending machine that kind of like clicked a bunch of things for me.
Totally. The thing I love about the Uniswap V2 design is that like it is self-contained. I love designs that are self-contained, and I think if you have a lot of dependencies on chain, your design, that's like the design of an asshole. Like you want you want something that's like svelte. You want it to be kind of like the minimum things that are required and to be self-contained. If it requires interaction with another protocol, it's like, for me, it's like already dead.
Cool. Like beautiful and clean, and if it's the other protocol, it better be beautiful and clean also, or something. The reason why I asked the Ponzi question is just was from Philogy, and his shitting on you on Twitter a little bit. Also a crack developer, also a great builder. It's
for
great
real,
to see
dude.
people
Unbelievably good.
Yeah.
I actually was just I was over because the new protocol I'm working on like has similarities with this like Vickery auction contract that he had written before. It's like, have you ever do you know what I'm talking about? The Vickery contract auction?
Not really. No.
Holy shit, dude! This is like one of the. Cool. Can we wrap?
Yes, please.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. All right. So this Vickery contract auction is like one of the most badass contracts of all time. Like, okay, so it works like this. It's like it's like an NFT. Do you know how Vickery? Well, let me just say how Vickery auction works. So the Vickery auction is there's people bid on something, and then they take the second price. So like it's like the second highest price, the first highest bidder pays that. So it's like you're only paying what the market would have borne. And so even if you overbid, it's fine, because that's like I'm saying what I'm willing to pay in extreme circumstances. Which like I don't like Vickery auctions, but like putting that aside, they're kind of cool. They have interesting theory. And so what he did was he made this Vickery auction contract that used Create 2 to deploy a contract to recover funds. And so they bid. So your bid, right, was like, I would look at the contract, I would figure out what my constructor arguments were. And then I would just transfer my ETH blindly into the void, right, to this like contract that I'm probably not going to be able to, I need to recover from. And then when the reveal happens, so it's like kind of a commit reveal scheme. So it's like everything, all the bids in this system look like just blind ETH transfers across across Ethereum, right? And then when the reveal happens, you deploy your Create 2 contract using your constructor arguments. Okay, and that goes out. That sends the ETH back, self-destructs the contract, and then they use a Patricia Merkle tree prover to prove that your balance was in that contract at that point, which is like very key, because then you could like backdate your bids or whatever. Yeah, it's super badass, and I think about it all the time when I'm building shit. Like, yeah.
This is a really cool mechanism, and this is
Yeah.
how you think about ideas and implementing ideas. Is like, how is this thing going to work, and how is this thing going to, just even going back to a Vickery auction, how is this thing going to efficiently price a thing so
Mhm.
people don't get hosed on it? And you look at Dutch auctions and other auctions and how they go about doing this, but this is how you're thinking. I think when you're thinking about making a protocol, you're thinking about these mechanisms and how they work and how they are more efficient. But then in this situation, you're thinking about this really beautiful on-chain market that's like both sides, that uses all these really neat things like the create to deployer, the counterfactual address that's not there yet, and putting
Mhm.
money into it as the incentive.
Yeah.
Like, and then the Merkle tree is like bringing a bunch of off-chain stuff to be provable on-chain. Just
Yes.
some really cool, neat things there. So Philogy built that, and it's the whole point is to generate a vanity contract address, right? And it incentivizes the vanity contract address getting created.
Oh, sorry.
Am I
No,
right?
no, no.
This is something else.
This is a bit. So you would send an NFT. I think this was NFTs. I don't remember actually.
Okay,
I'm
this is
pretty
just
sure it's
buying
NFT.
NFTs.
Yeah, yeah. So you
Okay,
send an
okay.
NFT to this contract. You deploy this new Vickery auction contract. Bidders come up and read the contract, and they blindly are transferring their ETH into these these contracts that will be counterfactual address. And then during the reveal period, they pay a little bit more to ensure that they reveal, because if they lost, they're just like going to be like, you or whatever. But then during this reveal period, they come back and they say, okay, they reveal, the contract gets deployed, the ETH gets transferred, and they validate who's the winner.
Got it. So it's
Yeah.
a really elegant way to sell or to auction off an NFT
Mhm.
in a very efficient way, using some create to tricks to do this, like kind of
Yeah.
counterfactually. Neat.
Yeah, because you couldn't really run a Vickery auction, like a blind Vickery auction
Right.
like that, without this. Yeah.
Without like ZK or something.
Yeah,
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 you
yeah,
can't run
totally.
it on
Yeah,
chain and have it like comparing different amounts privately, because everything
yeah,
is on chain. Yep. And
right.
you hit something there about the commit reveal, and this is really interesting that most ETH devs don't think this way at first. They think of like, how do I get the code to do what it needs to
Hmm.
do? But really,
Yeah,
you need to think about, how do I get the humans to do what they need to do?
yeah.
And a real good insight there is like, there needs to be incentives, and they need to pay that extra amount, because if they're counted on to reveal, there needs to be some timeout period where if they don't reveal, because there's a chance they might not reveal, that
Hmm.
the system can continue on and even incentivize somehow some other system of someone else revealing or timeout or liquidating or something like that. And it's like, you don't think about that until you really start building things and seeing how people use them and get to the other side of this, and then you kind of have to backtrack that and use that in your method from the get-go.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and
Okay.
it's like you
Go
get
ahead.
better at it over time. It's just like you kind of just gotta like do it and fuck it up a few times. One of the things they used to do, this is back before, AVAX existed, but back when Amin Gunsair was running, I think it's called E3, that school. One of the things they had them do is implement an ERC20 contract from scratch. It was like, here's the interface, now implement an ERC20 contract from scratch. And that's a great way to learn something, is fucking it up a few times and then figuring out what you did wrong. I think Astaria V0 was a tragedy in terms of software development. I don't even want to look at it ever again. But from that, you learn new things and design philosophies. I think simplicity is key. Like DeFi developers love complexity, or like the LARP of complexity in
The
something.
LARP of complexity. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like in reality, like here's another great example of simplicity versus complexity. Okay, Starry V0 was super complex. It like had vaults, and then the vaults had like withdrawal periods, and then they had to deploy a vault to do a withdrawal. Very complicated. And here comes along like Blend, right? This like Dan Robinson Paradigms design. That was an NFT lending protocol. It was just like so simple and so like
Once you
elegant.
see it.
Yeah, you're like, oh fuck, like that's. I'm sorry, was there cursing on this thing?
No. Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it rip.
All right.
Yeah.
Then like I see it, I'm like, so good, dude. It's so good because it's like, how do you efficiently price something? Well, like you gotta, way you efficiently price something is you gotta have somebody ready to buy it, and like the bar, aside from like the capital inefficiency of that, it's like people that say like, oh, we have an oracle that tells us what the price of something is like, you don't know. You can't tell from an oracle. It's like if I get a price in oracle from Coinbase, right? Coinbase has like a lot more depth. So my like little like tiny protocol or whatever, or like liquidity that would be on chain, like I can't rely on that to tell me anything. In fact, that's like I hate oracles in general. I think that they're probably one of the worst things that we do. I think it's like a cop out, or oracles. It's like, oh, we can't come up with a price, so that's what's beautiful about
I'm going to pay a
Blend.
computer to put it in here for me.
Yeah, it's so silly. It's like, no. Let's come up with a way, a strategy of how to get,
let the market
answer.
Price itself. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That was a lot of the design in Eth Strategy was like, I had so many people come up and tell me, this mechanism isn't that complicated. I know, it's designed to be that way. It's designed to like one learning from Sushi was that like we had this X Sushi and the Sushi bar, and we had this like swap mechanism where you like, we're unwrapping the tokens and swapping them, and anybody could do it. So we were always getting like front run on our swaps, basically. Like people were, and then I was like, and that's an instance of like a really complicated mechanism. It was probably simple for the time, but now it seems like really complicated. And going back to Blend, which is the lending protocol, I really thought that the mechanism was clean because it essentially allowed the market to price what something was, and so the Blend protocol worked like this. You had an NFT, you had kind of like a lender and a borrower. The lender gets the NFT into like a vault. The borrower gets their money, and then at any time the lender can recall the loan. And when they recall, it starts an auction, an inclining percentage auction. From
instead of going to an oracle and saying, what's the price of this thing? No, it puts it on auction and finds out.
Exactly. It's so silly to do oracles, right? So it's like it goes to 0 to 1,000% APR, right? And then once it hits 1,000% APR, it's deemed like nobody wants 1,000% APR. This thing's underwater. And so it's like, another brilliant mechanism. I love mechanisms that don't require externality. It can have like participants, right? Like the participants have to be like economically motivated, not like, I hit an API, the API gave me this response. The only exception that I would give to that is like the upcoming ZK-TLS. I think that's super badass. Do you know about ZK-TLS?
I'm familiar with the concept of ZK-TLS and ZK email, where you're using ZK proofs to prove things like in a browser, and then later on that can settle on chain or something. But maybe there's more to it here.
Well, so TLS uses it's like keys, right?
Yep.
And so we have all these like wacky Oracle frameworks that are like, I have this strategy of signing for Chainlink, or I had this strategy for signing for Band or Redstone or whatever. But this is just like, there's an API endpoint. It's HTTPS. And if you hit it and you generate the, based on the key of that connection, now you're going to bring data on chain, and it's a key that we've agreed to is the correct key. I think it's the best design.
It's like HTTPS into the contract.
Yeah, it's super badass. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. How about AI? Where you use a lot of AI with your building? Like how has AI changed are you using Cursor, GPT, Claude? What's your stack look like in terms of AI?
Cursor, because I was using VS Code before anyway. And then Cursor came along. Somebody really like leaned on me to use Cursor, and I was like, okay, I'll use it, and it's awesome,
Immediately
dude.
awesome. Yep.
I can do like 10 times the work that I could
Yep.
do before. Because there's like little idiosyncrasies that you hang up on all day about something that might not even be your specialty, right? Like a tsconfig file or something, and you're getting in there and you're like, what the fuck does any of this mean? And as you're in there and you're like struggling, it's just, it was like, when developers before the internet existed had like books, they had like a book from like Oracle or Java, that they would, Sun Microsystems, they would open it up and they would read it, and then we got like Stack Overflow, and then getting better. This is just like the next level. It's insane. I feel like I very rarely am tripped up on things now.
That's awesome. Same. Like that's a lot of it is like, whoa, what the hell is this thing? Teach me real quick what this is, and let's move on from this. And then it's more like, okay, I need to do this complicated thing. I was trying to do the weirdest, it was some kind of like, I wanted to make an isometric map, and I was going to have to map all this stuff. And I like sat for hours thinking through how this thing would work. And then finally I was like, oh, and I found the solution. And I sat down and I started writing it, and it fucking auto completed it. Before I was like, no, so, like all I had to do was get started, and it was going to give me the answer. And I spent hours thinking about how to do it when I should have just gotten started and tried.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't trust the solution that way. If it told it, because sometimes it gives me like ridiculous shit. Like it's like,
for sure,
1310 CS stuff it'll do for me, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. The only thing that really annoys me about AI is when I try and write comments. I use comments as like a thinking pattern. I'll say like, I'll like create the function, and then inside the function I'll make like a list of like 6 or 7 comments. Do this, now do this, now do this, do this, and then I delete the comment or I write that thing and then I delete the first comment. Then I do, that's how I like think through it. It'll try and like write comments for me. I'm like, no, daddy, that's what I'm supposed to do.
So heavily using AI, but like double checking everything and probably not using it to like create the magic. Like you still are writing the magic. You're just using AI around that to fill everything else in.
Totally. And syntax is like, I mean, sometimes the syntax is so hard to it's an edge case on the syntax or something. Like, for instance, an instance of this might be like, I don't know, a declaration of a contract versus a struct versus an array, and then kind of like trying to like work your way through that. It's like, it's kind of, and then unit tests. Oh my God. Unit tests, you used to have to kind of like edit this one, now edit this one, because you found like something was wrong with it. So now you have to edit all, 100 unit tests or whatever. And then now AI is just like, I'll like edit the first one, and then AI will like find all the ones in there.
Yep.
Like, yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yep.
And then, so I use O1 or whatever in Cursor. And then I think I just use OpenAI. I haven't really messed with any of the other platforms. I haven't messed with DeepSeek. Haven't messed with Claude that much. I mean, I was using Claude to get started, but
Claude, I think I've heard Claude is great, and I've heard Claude people move from O1 to Claude 3.5, and they were happy with that. I have both, and whenever I get mad at it for doing some dumb shit, I usually switch to the other one. It's kind of like I'm dumping one girlfriend and finding the other one, but the grass is always greener on the other side, kind of thing. I've done DeepSeek too, like brought it down locally. It's so much fun when you are on an air-gapped machine asking some bespoke question about like ancient Greece, and it's like and just like spits it out for you. It's
Isn't
so
that
cool.
crazy?
It's just like a wealth of humanity right here on my silicon.
I used to always, when I was younger, I watched like Iron Man, and he would have what's the name of his assistant?
I don't even know what Iron Man assistant is. I think this is a different. I don't know.
You know the movie Iron Man? Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like HAL or something like that, right? It's not HAL
No.
is the I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Jarvis,
Anyway,
maybe?
yeah,
Yeah.
Jarvis. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jarvis. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
I would see that, and I was like, "That's
That's
never going to
big.
happen." We're probably 50
Yeah.
years from that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
natural language processing, sure, but then like taking that thing and then like getting
It's
intent,
magic.
and then like if using that to even to just search, would be unimaginable for me, like probably just like 10 years ago. And now it's here. It's crazy. It feels like like the crazy part is like, I can download the entire internet. That's, yeah, I don't know, exabytes of data or whatever. But these things are svelte. I mean, some of them are, under a gigabyte in size, and it can, speak and understand, and it can write software really well. It knows about obscure Ethereum facts when I ask it. Like I'll
Sometimes wrong. It'll
yeah
hallucinate too.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah totally. But like if I say, how is the state root generated? It's like boom, it'll go like find it. It's like, and that's like, yeah. Or in Yule, how do I reset the free memory pointer? And it knows how to do it, and it knows how to write Yule, which is like a esoteric smart contract programming language.
So cool.
Yeah.
So 100% pro AI. You don't use it to
Yes.
bring in the magic. You still do some of the magic yourself, but everything else around you is definitely like AI enhanced for sure.
I mean, don't count on me as being a very good like predictor of the future, but I think that's going to be the way that it's going to be for some time. Like they just can't do architecture, and like I don't even know how it could learn architecture, to be honest. Like
But
there's
this is it. This is, as a builder, you're thinking architecture. You're not thinking
yes,
code anymore. You're thinking
right,
boxes and how those boxes look and what goes on chain and what the user's interface looks like and how those boxes interact. You do all that, and then you kind of let the AI fill in the details from there. But
yeah,
that kind of systems thinking is something that you as the builder at home need to get really good at. And I think one thing we talked about here is you can get good at it by basically shipping a couple of things and
yeah,
finding
yeah,
all
yeah.
these
Just make a
problems.
bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. The thing here's man, I actually, the shipping a bunch of things thing is very important actually. We built a shitload of protocols um in DeFi Summer. Like, I know it's like 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now, but it's like that time frame was really useful for kind of like learning a lot of things. So it's like some of the things that developed were like Yearn. People started using Uni and Sushi. People started actually using Compound and Aave to lever. And those like designs, Rari came out. People were starting to learn like how leverage works on chain, how and so that like experimentation, people did rebasing tokens. That sort of like experimentation has gone out because there's so much of a focus on um, perfection of each protocol,
Mhm.
and there are levels to this. I think like the first level of like problems is that there's too much money at stake. Um, builders were making too much money. People were putting too much money into the protocols. And so we've lost the ability to experiment. The other thing, this is like probably be my most controversial thing that I'll say, and let me preface this with, I've never lost money in a smart contract or lost money on smart contracts I deployed. But audits are kind of bullshit. They don't really work. People keep losing money. Protocols keep getting hacked. The audit industrial complex has basically LARPed to make everybody who's not technical believe that an audit is somehow any guarantee that the protocol won't get hacked. And there's a lot of shitty rubber stamp audit firms out there that you can get, it overnight. And so that's why I'm very keen on testing. I think if you have testing, perfect coverage, fuzz testing, and then what happens next is you should get your friends to review it. It shouldn't be like, I want to pay some company to review my contract. No, get your friends, say, hey, will you look over these contracts, see if there's any like mistakes that you see that I should correct, and do it in GitHub. Do it as like issues, issues or a review, like a PR review, and that's how I do it. I think, and the real problem is when I first bought audits, and I've spent more than $1 million in audits across like different protocols. When I first got in the game, I was shitty at Solidity, and I wasn't ready to be told that, and so auditors they'll charge you, and then at the end, what a lot of them will do is they'll say, hey, we found a lot of problems with this code. You shouldn't deploy it. They're like, and you can transfer the funds to this bank. Thanks. It's expensive, dude. Like some of these audit firms charge, like the cheapest will be at a lot of these is like $50,000 for, and like many of them will go into like 250. And it's like, so you can't build anything anymore. It's just basically we're all hamstrung by this idea that everything needs to be audited. And in reality,
these were really expensive. For a long time, these are really expensive.
Yes.
There were some things that have helped the audit space, and that's these platforms that kind of create the double-sided market of, hey, you can go to like Code Arena and you can become an auditor and learn how to do auditing stuff. And at the same time, they're getting an audit, kind of making a quicker, more accessible, you have access to this. I feel like that did help the audit space and a couple of those. So when you're thinking of ideas out there, this was like a great idea that needed to happen like 2 or 3 years ago. And it did. And I think it's helped the space a lot.
Totally. That might be a good way to get good at Solidity, is just like participating in
these
those
audits. Yep.
I don't necessarily like the problem with these with the audit contests and audit in general is like, if you wrote a protocol and it's clean and it's not without any error, but you might get information notes or design notes. The auditor is incentivized to find something, and so if they come back and they tell you they didn't find anything, that's like, for you, it's like that as the developer, that's like a red flag for you. It's like, wait, how do they not find anything? But in reality, that never happens, so they come back and they always tell you something, and it's always kind of like a red mark on the record, because the people who are the consumer of audits are not developers and they're not auditors. It's the users, and they don't know how anything works. So like if you tell me that I got an audit by I got an audit by Quant Stamp or whatever, Peck Shield or whatever, they don't know, But if I told them, like if I got an audit by, what's the other firm's name? Like Trail of Bits or Open Zeppelin, it doesn't make any difference to them, right? It's just, they're just like, yeah, I got an audit.
It really only makes a difference when it goes wrong too, and then everybody's pointing at some decision you made.
Yeah, sure.
I think Amin, when the first swap, like he had something that like got audited, or he audited it, and it didn't. It was like tokens. It was some swap, and it was like $40,000, and the auditor had quoted him $40,000. So it's like he lost the same amount of money in the actual hack than the auditor was charging him, or something like that. So he might as well not get an audit and find it out in real time.
It's so funny that you say that, because I have spent like that much in audits like over the years, and then I realized like also like bug bounties don't work either. Like it's just like these bug bounty platforms are nonsensical. All it is like you get inundated with spam from LARP security researchers who don't actually have a bug, but want to like kind of like twist your arm and bully you, because they're in some like third world country, and they want to like they're like, this is like a year's salary for them or whatever to get this like bug through. And so they will
Just
like
in your DMs constantly.
endlessly
Yeah.
harass. It's not even DMs.
Yeah.
It's like on those
On
platforms,
Twitter. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, the great, there's nothing wrong with security at your domain dot, it's security at your domain, and then just get emails and just make sure you respond to them. And that way, when you get these kind of vulnerabilities, like a real security researcher who's going to want to take a huge bounty isn't want to go pay the 10% on these platforms anyway. They'd want a bigger bounty, so they'll just email you directly. And so just say security at your domain or whatever, and put it, prominently within the website, within the GitHub repo, and have them email you. And
That's alpha.
Right. Once you email, because you can totally just ignore somebody who's harassing you. But if there's a real security bug, or real security vulnerability, you want to find out about it. That's the way to go, I think.
So, okay, so you said something there that I really want to dive into. And I think that for me as a builder, when I first got in, I wasn't ready to be told that I was an idiot either. But I think, and like we all get in and we're dumbasses for a long time. And it takes kind of a tour of duty to realize that you're in the bottom of the pit, basically, of understanding things. Can you dive into that a little bit more? You weren't ready to be told that your Solidity was shitty. Like, at what point were you ready? And like, did you ever? Is it a friend that tells you? Like, what? There's just a different. Yeah, I don't know. Let me just leave it open.
It's like deploying this, like, and like the protocol for a Starry V0 was so huge, and it was very like complicated and cumbersome. And it had, upgradable proxies and all this stuff. And I think that was the realization for me that this wasn't, normal, a normal way to,
it needs to be
do
stupid
this.
simple.
Yeah.
You need someone to land and say, this is simple. What is this? Like, why is this even a thing? And like, that's the most like pure protocol type thing you want to build.
Yeah, I think simplicity is key. Like, so Astaria V1, and this goes in, like, so I like learn lesson, like, make protocols simple. It's like V0 was and then we built Astaria V1 in Starport. It was like this modular like lending protocol, and then we built Astaria V1 on top of it. It was like, and that was like lesson 2 is that there's no such thing as modular contracts. It's like, treat, if it's not like basic primitives like ERC20, 721, ownable, whatever, like standard contract libraries that you'll find in Solidity or Open Zeppelin. If it's not one of those, it's not modular. And so treat everything that you write like a paper cup. You're writing it one time, and if you want it to be this like you want it to be this like composable interface, it's like literally nobody's using the product anyway. So when you think that other developers are going to come in, and that's another key learning, is like, you think other developers are going to come and build on your protocol, which like is like maybe, but then you probably have like a fee switch or something, and they're not going to do that shit. So just like, don't build modular, just build the paper cup. When you're done with it, just crumple it up and throw it away. Yeah.
It needs to do the job once. And you see this like beautiful elegance of modularity, and you imagine all these people using this and how it's going to be so cool and you're going to be famous. And it's like, It does not work that way. It kind of works in the opposite way, really. Like, by the time they start forking you, like you're already like you're made at that point. And to get there had nothing to do with the modularity. It was like doing something really good at first.
Yes. Yeah, dude, that's another thing is like, in DeFi in particular, people are building things. You should be very narrow about what you're doing, and there should be key trade-offs. I feel like another learning this probably came from V0 was like the attempt to make everyone win. It's finance. Literally, someone has to lose. So who's it going to be? And dictate how and when that happens, who wins, who loses, and under what conditions. Clear. Yeah. If it's like, I remember we had like these like we had these like withdrawal proxies, and so we transfer funds into the withdrawal proxy, and then we wanted to make sure that there wasn't any like rush to exit. It's like when you do a lot of that, you find out that you can't make everyone win, and the thing that you built to make everyone win actually winds up being shitty, and no one wants to use it. So just build something with clear rules. The rules are, you're the lender, I'm the borrower. The lender wants his money back, we do an auction. Like that. It's dead simple.
It's awesome. Well, okay, so one thing you mentioned here, and I think it's like a critical piece for builders and getting feedback and getting validation, is friends. You need to have friends.
Yes.
Like if you're living in the dark, building this perfectly modular thing that everyone's going to use, and you don't have any friends, you're fucked.
Yeah.
How did you make friends? Like, where did you get your friends? Like, how do you find your cabal?
I actually really didn't have any Solidity developer friends when I started getting serious about Solidity, which I've really only been serious about Solidity for, let's say, like 4 years, 3 years, something like that. Not that long, 4 years. I'm in like an optimization fans chat. That's like Gatekeep, and Phil is there too, and a lot of other Vectorize, the creator of Solidity. Like I really respect them a lot, and those people always help. Like I've never asked a question and had somebody be like, I don't know, dude, like go look it up, or let me Google that for you, kind of thing.
But friends
because
are
there's
important,
like,
and you need to have friends. Go find, even if you're just fucking following, like trolling people on Twitter to start. Just get friends, start following people. You're gonna need friends.
Or you can find people that you like their contracts on GitHub, and then you can like, a lot of people link their Twitter and GitHub, then you can like find their Twitter and follow them. I also just said like, from the jump when I joined the industry, I would DM everyone. I just had no shame about that. I would just like DM every person that I respected. Yeah, I mean, maybe like DM and try and make friends with people, or volunteer to build something for people. That's a great way to get experience. It's like, because people aren't out there having people aren't falling over themselves to build stuff for other people for free.
We good to go for like another 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, let's stay as long as you want. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a hard question. How do you know when to let a project go? Like letting go of an idea and moving on to something else.
I'd say when I reach a certain level of complexity, I'll say this idea is like, there's a level of complexity that I think is makes the idea not as appealing. It's like, let me think of an instance of when I did that. Yeah, I just nothing's coming to mind right now, but I have, and ideas that are as the complex, like I had like kind of like an original pure vision of the thing, and as I went towards implementation, the implementation made it very confusing and gross. But another thing that you touched on earlier is like was something that I like. This quote from Elon is like, the biggest mistakes engineers make is trying to optimize something that should not exist to begin with. Is like, that's a story for Astaria V0, was like trying to optimize a thing that could not exist, because nobody was wanting loans on NFTs. We thought everyone did.
That's great.
The meta was there, everybody was like, everybody wants to borrow on their NFTs. And really, that's like going back to getting a customer first. Is like, if you want to validate something, try and get a customer for it.
So there's this like simplicity and beauty of a thing. And I think you tweeted this. It was something about like ADHD will be like finding the beautiful, simple solution before you've defined the problem. And defining the problem
totally.
is so clear. Was that you too? Yeah. Something similar here, where like you really like these elegant solutions. So you're thinking of a problem space, and all of a sudden this really elegant solution comes in, but it's really not solving the thing that you need to be solving. You really kind of have to let go of that. And it's so hard to do sometimes, even just an idea, right? You have an idea and you're percolating it, there's a moment where you have to like let it go. It's not just complexity, there's more to it. Is it like even like friends say it's dumb? Or I mean, sometimes that's a good sign, but
Yeah,
there's got to
yeah.
be
Actually,
other ways to
that's the
validate it.
counter trade right there. Yeah, if
Yeah.
your friends say it's dumb, you should ship that thing.
Ape.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yep. So letting an idea go, I think that's more complicated. I don't know if we had an exact answer for that. It's more like you know when you know, and you're probably way too far into it already, right? Like you couldn't have gone back to you 80% of the way through Astaria V0 and be like, look, I'm you from the future. You should not do this. Like, quit
Yeah.
making it so complicated. You would have been like, fuck off, me from the future.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
ship this.
What do you know, dude?
Yeah. What do you know? Exactly. Yep. And it's a hard truth. So okay, any other like hard truths you've come across as you've gotten into the space and shipped more things? For instance, is smart contract development really something that should be accessible for anybody who can code? Or is it really down to like this small 5% of system engineers that are super cracked that are basically deserve to write the Solidity in the first place?
I don't know. I think, I mean, Solidity is easy to do and hard to do right. It's like, I feel like, yeah, I want it to be accessible for everyone, but yeah, it's probably wrong. Like if you're wanting to do something, it's probably better that you use boilerplate contracts for almost everything. And there's boilerplates for just about everything with audits. There are very few things that don't exist. So I don't know. I would say like, but they're all like, a lot of them will like age out or whatever. You go and you check the repo and it'll say 4 years ago, the last push. I think maybe it's probably not the best to be writing like production Solidity, but also like I love the experimentation. Like that was the whole design with Eth Strategy, was like all about quick, fast experimentation. We've lost a lot of that since DeFi Summer. It's like I basically have to come up with a protocol idea, then I have to pitch it to VCs, and then I have to get the money, and then I have to hire a team to build it. It's like that's lame. I don't want to do that. And I want to build shit and I want to deploy it just like just like Andre, I don't want to security is something you should worry about, but people's opinion on Twitter about how security works is not really like something relevant to me. But I think we're losing our edge in development by not developing a lot of things, by making sure that everything is 100% safe and additionally appealing, particularly to the gamblers. Like, I don't give a shit about those people. I hope they like lose money in Fartcoin or whatever they're doing, like it doesn't bother me. But there's like so much like this, you see, it's like just came out like Flaunch and like these Clanker and Pump.fun. It's like all these like if this is what we built, I'll just go kill myself on webcam. I don't want to do this. I don't want to build a fucking casino.
Don't KYS.
Yeah. This is gonna get flagged or whatever. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to build a more gambling apps for people who like have unaddressed gambling addictions. I want to build things that matter and things that are useful.
So what kind of, that's a good segue to what kinds of things belong on chain. And then I have one last question for you, but like, what kinds of things should we be building? What kinds of things need this level of hardness to them?
Anything is economic. I think economic is a really good piece of that. And it doesn't always have to be like tokens and money and swaps or whatever. For instance, when we built Untitled was a
Social
bidding mechanism for getting to the top of the feed on the Untitled page. It's like economic. everyone had tokens. The tokens were, you used to say how long you want to be in that position or bid for that position.
How did that one fail? Where did you give up on that one, or where did you move on from that one? What was the turning
Yeah,
point?
it was cool, man. I actually was super badass. I wish there just wasn't enough uptake, and the path to getting more users on was very difficult. Also, the what do you call it? The infrastructure bills were pretty expensive. But it was super cool. My goal of that was that I wanted to get my mom and dad to use an app that I built. And the way that we achieved that was we used
a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah, we used 4337 as our accounts. So we used account abstraction for people who don't know. We used account abstraction, and then we used passkey signing. Like that's like built into everyone's phone now. You can do passkey signing.
Yeah.
Then we signed it, and then we would do gas sponsoring. And then it was a web app. And so you could go to untitled.chat, post on there, and then, the whole onboarding experience, you never touched any wallet, but you still had a wallet, and you still had the same kind of self-custody aspect that you would have had with a regular wallet, which is like beautiful. It was like probably the best user experience I've ever seen in Web3. And that's why I wanted to build. I've had that idea in my head since I was working at Sushi. I wanted to see something like that.
So it was basically the fact that even though it was a great experience, like you had to be in the trenches and onboard people one at a time. Yeah. And from other products that you've deployed, what it's like to have a banger. Like people show up. People show up everywhere. You're just like, okay, whoa, this is what it looks like. Yeah. And if it's not like that, like it's not clicking with people.
Yeah, totally. And like that's not to say that nothing can be like a slow grind or whatever. You think like Uniswap is like Uni V1, Uni V2, and then even Uni V2 was out for like, I want to say like almost a year before like DeFi Summer hit. And then everybody was like, of course I'm using Uniswap. The first time I used Uniswap, I was like, my mind was blown. Like you were saying, it was blown because I was like, because at the time it was like it was either a centralized exchange or
like
it sucked.
And stuff.
Yeah, right. It was either like a real sex or or a DEX that sucked. And I was like, okay, this thing is like Uniswap. Okay, give me a quote. I need to swap like to DAI. It's actually at ETH Denver, which is coming up. And I had to swap to DAI from ETH, and Amin was just like, hey, just use Uniswap. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I went in there and like I went to do the swap, and I was like, didn't ask me for my name, didn't ask me for KYC stuff. I figured there'd be some like rub. I think even Radar Relay asked for your email back then. It was like they didn't do any of that shit. It was like token, press button, monkey gets the other token. It was awesome. It was the first time I actually swapped out of ETH. So much so that I couldn't like actually move the DAI.
Oh, you ran out of gas.
Yeah, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, another problem shows itself. Yes, and someone else was providing the liquidity, and someone else made a fee on that, and all of that is permissionless. You don't know who they are or a big group of it. It's just so many cool hyperstructures can be built once you understand what a hyperstructure is. Totally. Okay, I think I'm almost done. Last question. It's a stupid one. What is your superpower?
I will overcommit to things. And then I will overcommit to things that I don't actually believe that I can do. And that's a superpower because I always do it. It's just like you commit to something so large and grand and exceeds what you think you're capable of. And so kind of one of the things that you have to do is like, whenever that happens, you have to go learn. So it's like, I have to go learn, I have to go learn Rust now, or I have to go learn how to do, indexing. It's like, it always works out. Just overcommit to whatever and you'll learn.
Cool. Awesome. That was great.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph Delong, the
That's
first
awesome.
PMFer on my PMFers. I'm so excited to do more of these. This is
Sick,
great,
dude.
though. Thank you so much.
You should get Sassel to tweet this, because this is like totally like public good stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this
Cool,
could be
man.
like an Ethereum Foundation type thing, you know? One of the things that they like tweet or retweet or whatever.
We're getting there. I'm just the first episode, you know. Let me get some credit before I start, you know, talking to the big sharks.
Let me ask you, do you got to go?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
What's up?
Let me ask you, what's your stack like?
It's that same thing, scaffold ETH, basically. So we're doing Foundry or Hard Hat. I use them interchangeably most of the time, but more Foundry than Hard Hat now. Hard Hat was just easier deploying things.
Yeah.
So I like go to production like once a day with a project and dig around with it. So it's
exactly.
Like
that's what I'm talking about, dude.
Yeah.
So many, dude. This is the problem. The problem is that people have made it so that you have to be like, you know, I have to have an investment from A16Z. I have to have Trail of Bits audit it, and then I can deploy it. You know, 10 years from now, after all the alpha is extracted, man. The thing that was badass for me was like somebody could come up with a financial product
and
that could be ready.
Yes. And then they just start fucking with it. Yeah.
Yep. Right. And then it's out Wednesday, you know, instead of, you know, all this like cajoling.
And there's like some messed up overall like crypto economics in there. Like it won't work because of X, but it will work now for a while. Or like it relies on a centralized sequencer because it could be front run, but it works until they make decentralized sequencers. Like those are the kinds of things I build and ship. So, but my stack is the same. It's like Foundry. I dink around with the contract, but I have scaffold ETH. So I make a change to the contract and like buttons and stuff show up in the front end. And I kind of do that in Symphony, like both of those two things. But it's the same stack that you talk through, like Next.js, deploying to Vercel. I have a bunch of components that I use to like display addresses and like an address input component. If I want to do a swap or a token, I'll go get on-chain kit and use that as an extension to scaffold ETH. If I want an indexer, I'll bring in the Ponder.
Hell yeah, dude. Ponder is some
extension.
Shit, dude.
Yep.
Remember the graph? Oh my God. So bad. Yeah. Like, I don't know like how anybody ever built anything using the graph. It was
kind of slow. It's still happening. Like there's still lots of graph stuff that's getting built, but Ponder and Index Supply is another good indexer. But yes, I think my stack is basically scaffold ETH. You can go to scaffoldeth.io and try it out. It allows you to build your contracts and tinker at the same time. So I'm not writing a lot of tests. I'm like accessing the function from the owner and then accessing the function from someone who's not the owner and making sure that only the owner can hit it and then moving on to the next thing. And then eventually, like if something is good, like, okay, now it's time to write a bunch of tests here. And sometimes I'll even have the AI write the tests, like write a test of this, write a test of that, and it kind of fills it in. Like I'm heavily AI. I don't write very much code. I'm heavily AI pushing stuff. Right.
Yeah. I probably say that I'll write like, I don't know, 20 or 30% of the code.
Okay.
And then I just want to I want to review.
I probably do that.
I feel bad for kids now. Is like they're coming up and then they're seeing the AI write the code. And it's like having a calculator when you're trying to learn to do math.
It's going to create a huge chilling effect on people's like ability to think critically, for sure.
Yeah, and
like even writing something, like go write a poem. The idea of writing a poem in the 90s was like, man, you could get so many girls if you could write a poem. Now it's like, hell no. Like a computer can write a way better poem than you. You look like a douchebag for even trying. Yeah. So kids aren't anymore. They're not sitting around writing. I mean, maybe that's a good thing. They're not sitting around writing poetry, whatever. But that's cool. Like that was like that creative process is now kind of taken away because a computer can do it better than you. And I think there's gonna be so many things that this chilling effect hits that actually causes like humans to be less interesting, which is too bad.
I always felt this way about the developers that I met that were like in the 70s and 80s, and I would talk to them and I'd be like, dude, what did you do? And they're like, we had a book, and then those books were like 20 grand for the full volumes or whatever. And then they would and then if we really got stuck, we would pick up the phone and we would call Oracle and they would have like a helpline or something. And so I feel like that was like an experience where, you know, you only had your own personal knowledge. And I just feel like the strain that I put on myself to like make sure, like fix software so that it's right, is what made me what I am today. And without that kind of rigor, it's going to hurt their ability to build good software, you know? Yeah, hopefully we wrote enough of
I
it
don't know
out
how to
there
teach
that
them.
the AI, you know, will teach them how to write it correctly, or knows how to write it correctly. But I just feel like I even like something as simple that I learned in college. It was like variable assignment, right? Variable declaration and assignment. I remember that was really confusing for me at the start, and then like I don't know that I would understand that if I could have AI just kind of like write shit for me.
Yeah, and you almost have to have fail and be like, "What is going on here? I'm trying to like I'm creating this and it's still 0," and you just have to dink
Yeah,
around and fail a few times. Yeah, and right
totally.
now it's more like you dink around and you fail, but you don't know why, and you kind of copy paste it to GPT, and GPT either
Oh,
solves it or not, and you're just in a hell loop, like kind of just it makes you frustrated rather than makes you excited, which for me, like building is so exciting
yes,
back in the
totally.
day.
I love building shit. Like that's my biggest pet peeve is like when I'm with like like when I'm working with somebody, it's like really focused on how to make money with something. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, you know. But like let's build this shit, and then if people care about it, then we'll figure out how to make money, you know.
Which is like PMFers out there everywhere. Build it first and build it for the love of building it and build something cool to like give someone some piece of magic. Like if you can put a piece of magic in someone's hand and they use it and say, fuck, this is magic. This is
Yeah,
awesome. Like that's what we're here for. That's like what feels so good about product market fit. When someone uses your thing to do something even better. And it's so cool. Not
yeah.
making money. Making money should be like the side effect of doing well.
Yeah, it's like like money's cool. I'm not a communist or anything, but you know, I don't know, it's not like the key thing to me. And you'll find that difference a lot with like the people who joined early in Ethereum versus the people who joined later. The people who joined later are like more kind of like money trading swaps obsessed than like a lot of like Ethereum started with like idealism. You know, that idealism that's kind of like run out now.
What okay, let's tap on that real quick. Like what is Ethereum here for? Like is it to be
Oh,
this very cold settlement layer that does exactly what it's supposed to do and the world can trust and access?
I mean, I think yeah, I think it's a decentralized settlement layer, but um, it's more than that. Should be trustless, should be decentralized. Um, yeah, and you know, like more throughput is way better, but the key aspect of trustless and decentralized are very important. Otherwise,
At
you've already
odds
lost the game.
with yeah. Cool, man. Awesome. All right. Any closing thoughts? Thoughts and
No, no, I'm
prayers?
very,
All
very
right.
happy to be here, and
Hell yeah.
I'll see you all at ETH Denver, I guess.
Hell
I'll
yeah.
be hacking because you know
Great.
you never get too good to stop hacking. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
Awesome. All
cool.
right, man. Joe, thanks you very much. Thank you for
Thanks a lot.
building. Keep building. PMFers. Go get some product market fit. Go get some friends on chain. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Cool.
See you.
Thanks a lot. See ya.